What if I told you the world doesn't care about fairness? That no matter how kind you are, how hard you work, or how good your intentions are, life will still hit you, betray you, ignore you. And yet, that very truth, the unfairness of life, holds the key to purpose, to peace, to power. You see, the Stoics understood something most people today refuse to face. Life isn't meant to be fair. It is meant to test you. The world doesn't promise justice. It offers struggle. And in that struggle, you find meaning. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it." He ruled an empire, yet still faced betrayal, loss, plague, and death. And yet, he didn't curse the gods or complain about his fate. He chose purpose. He chose virtue. He chose to lead, even in the face of chaos. Because fairness isn't a condition for greatness. Purpose doesn't need perfect circumstances. It needs discipline, vision, and inner control, the kind no one can take from you. But look around today. Most people have traded purpose for comfort. They scroll endlessly, waiting for motivation, waiting for the world to be kind enough for them to start living fully. But here is the truth. Waiting for fairness is waiting for a ghost. The world will never balance itself to your expectations. You either rise above it or get swallowed by it. Music deepens. Slow percussion. The sound of resolve building. The Stoic knows this. He doesn't ask for fairness. He asks for strength. He doesn't pray for an easy path. He trains for the hard one. Because when life is unfair, and it will be, you have two choices: complain or command yourself. Epictetus, who was born a slave, said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Those words weren't written from comfort. They were carved out of suffering. A man stripped of freedom, who still declared himself free because his mind was his own. That's Stoicism. That's sovereignty. And yet, most people today are enslaved by something far more subtle: their expectations. They expect people to treat them right. They expect rewards to match effort. They expect outcomes to align with intent, and when they don't, they crumble. But the Stoic lives by a different rule: expect nothing. Prepare for everything. When you accept that life owes you nothing, you stop waiting to be rescued. You start taking responsibility. You begin to see unfairness not as a curse, but as your curriculum. Every setback becomes your classroom. Every insult, your training. Every loss, your initiation into strength. Music swells gently, tension and clarity intertwine. Seneca once said, "Fire tests gold, suffering tests brave men." Think about that. Fire doesn't destroy gold. It purifies it. It burns away what's weak, false, and temporary. Life's unfairness works the same way. It's not here to punish you. It's here to reveal you. And yet, so many live bitterly, cursing the system, the government, the universe, other people, as if external blame will ever bring internal peace. It won't. The Stoic doesn't waste energy on outrage. He spends it on alignment, aligning his actions with his values, his effort with his vision, his response with reason. That's how you live with purpose in an unfair world. You stop fighting the way things are and start mastering the way you move through them. Music fades low, a deep, calm hum remains. Purpose isn't something you find. It's something you forge. It's the decision to live by principle, even when life refuses to reward it. Ask yourself, what would it look like to live by purpose, not by circumstance? It would look like patience when you're ignored, courage when you're doubted, integrity when no one's watching, persistence when results don't come. That's Stoicism in motion. Not empty philosophy, but action under fire. Because life doesn't care about what you know. It responds to what you embody. You don't read your way to strength. You practice your way to it. The Stoic sees life like a battlefield. Each moment offers a test. Will you act from ego or from excellence? Will you let unfairness weaken you, or will you use it to sharpen your character? And here's the paradox. When you stop demanding fairness, you become unstoppable. The same events that break others begin to build you. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What can I learn from this?" That single shift changes everything. Music rises slow, cinematic, like the beginning of a new chapter. Marcus Aurelius didn't live in a fair world. None of the Stoics did. Yet they thrived. Not because the world bent to them, but because they bent their minds around truth. They understood that the world owes you nothing. Not justice, not mercy, not comfort. But it gives you one thing, the opportunity to act with virtue. That is your power. That is your purpose. The Stoic playbook for purpose is simple. Do what is right, not what is easy. Seek wisdom over pleasure. Choose calm over chaos. Serve principle over pride. And in that, you'll find something that even fairness can't offer. Peace. Music fades slightly. Contemplative pause. So if the world feels unfair, good, that means it is working. That means it is giving you exactly the resistance needed to grow. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. Because when life denies you what is comfortable, it is forcing you toward what is capable. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." The unfair world isn't your enemy. It is your gym. It is your training ground. It is the forge where purpose is made, but you must choose to see it that way. Music deepens. Heavy drum beat. Calm voice continues. The weak look at hardship and see injustice. The Stoic looks at hardship and sees instruction. The weak seek fairness. The Stoic seeks fortitude. The weak wait for change. The Stoic becomes it. You are not here to demand fairness. You are here to demonstrate greatness. And if you want to live with purpose in an unfair world, you must stop being shocked by difficulty. You must start expecting it, welcoming it, using it, because once you stop hoping for the world to change, you start realizing that you have the power to. That's the first law of Stoic purpose. Your life's meaning isn't defined by fairness. It's defined by your response to unfairness. Music shifts, soft choral background, faint but powerful. So here's your call. Stop waiting for ideal conditions. They'll never come. Stop craving justice from a world that can't give it. Stop saying, "When it's fair, I'll try." It's unfair. Try anyway. It's hard. Try anyway. It's thankless. Do it anyway. Because your purpose isn't measured by how easy life is. It's measured by how deeply you live it, even when it's not easy at all. Music fades to a long, quiet echo. You don't need a fair world to live a meaningful one. You just need the courage to live as the Stoics did. Not blaming, not begging, but becoming. That's how you rise. That's how you live with purpose. In an unfair world, you think you've suffered enough to deserve peace. You think because you've done good, the world owes you calm. But that is not how this works. The Stoics would tell you, the moment you expect fairness, you create weakness. The world isn't unfair because it hates you. It is unfair because that is what keeps you alive. Because struggle is the language of growth. And without it, your purpose rots. Most people today don't understand this. They see pain as punishment. They call failure a curse. They think rejection means they're not enough. But to the Stoic, these are invitations. Sacred tests designed to show what still controls you. Every unfair moment in your life is a mirror showing what still owns you inside. When someone disrespects you and you lose control, it is not about them. It is about your lack of mastery. When life takes something you love and you spiral into despair, it is not about the loss. It is about your attachment. The Stoic doesn't run from these truths, he faces them. He looks into the chaos and whispers, "Teach me." Because he knows that every emotion, every disappointment, every injustice is part of his training. A teacher sent by life itself. Music deepens. Low strings, heavy yet elegant. The Stoic doesn't ask for ease. He asks for endurance. He doesn't pray for blessings. He prays for strength to use what he has well. That is mental sovereignty. That is what separates the free from the broken. When you build that kind of mind, the world can't touch you. It can hurt you, yes, but it can't own you. Marcus Aurelius lost his children, his wife, his friends, his health. And still he ruled with grace. Still, he wrote about patience, about humility, about staying good in a world that wasn't. That is what purpose looks like. Not joy without pain, but peace within it. The Stoic way isn't about ignoring emotion. It is about mastering it. When you feel anger, you study it. When you feel fear, you breathe into it. When you feel envy, you face your own ego and ask why. This is the battlefield of the soul, invisible but eternal, and those who master it become warriors of the mind. Music shifts, a light drum beat, the rhythm of controlled energy. The modern world tells you to react, to clap back, to make noise. But the Stoic tells you to pause, to hold your power, because the moment you react, you surrender your freedom. You let the outside world command your inner world. Epictetus said, "Any person capable of angering you becomes your master." That's the cost of reaction, enslavement. But the Stoic doesn't serve his emotions. He observes them. He doesn't bottle them up. He burns them into fuel. When insulted, he refines patience. When betrayed, he practices detachment. When wronged, he grows compassion. Every wound becomes wisdom in disguise. Every scar becomes a story of strength. And yet, to most people, this sounds impossible. Because they've never practiced stillness. They've never trained their mind. They've never said no to their impulses long enough to realize they are not their feelings. They are the awareness behind them. That's what Stoicism teaches, that the world outside is chaos. But your response is order. You can't control the storm, but you can control the sail. And if you can master that, you become untouchable. Not because life stops hurting you, but because pain stops defining you. That's purpose. To move through suffering without losing yourself. Music softens, then steadies into quiet resolve. The unfair world will never stop testing you. It will take what you love, delay what you deserve, humiliate you, exhaust you, make you question everything. But if you remain steady, if you remain grounded, you'll realize something incredible. The unfairness of life is the same force that builds your character. The obstacle is the way. The loss is the lesson. The pain is the polish. Without them, you'd stay ordinary. Comfort doesn't breed clarity, struggle does. And that is why the Stoic smiles when things go wrong. He knows it is his chance to rise. He knows this moment is training. He knows fortune doesn't favor the entitled. It favors the prepared. Music rises, horns echo softly, evoking ancient battlefields. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That is not poetic language. That is a survival code. The Stoics lived through plagues, wars, exile, and betrayal, and still they thrived. They didn't need the world to be fair because they didn't depend on it for peace. They depended on themselves. They understood that peace is not the absence of struggle. It is the mastery of it. The moment you realize this, life changes. You stop chasing external control. You stop saying, "It shouldn't be this way." Instead, you start asking, "How can I face this with honor?" And suddenly, every unfair thing becomes fuel. Music steadies, rhythm slows, then holds, like a long inhale. So when the world is cruel, don't shrink. When you are misunderstood, don't lash out. When you are betrayed, don't lose your faith in humanity. Keep your faith in your principles. Because your purpose is not to win. Your purpose is to stay aligned, to remain good in a world that isn't. That is what makes you unshakable. That is what builds a legacy. The world doesn't need another person who complains about injustice. It needs someone who can walk through it, calm, strong, awake. That is the Stoic way. That is the path of purpose. Music fades low. The sound of quiet rain returns. This world will test you in ways that feel personal. But it is not personal, it is practice. And the moment you stop asking, "Why me?" and start saying, "Train me," you cross the line from victim to master. You become the kind of person who doesn't wait for peace. You create it. Not in comfort, not in fairness, but in chaos. That is what sets apart the ones who exist from those who truly lead themselves. You wake up every day expecting the world to make sense. You expect effort to equal reward, love to equal loyalty, and kindness to return kindness. But it doesn't. It never did. And the Stoics would tell you, it's not supposed to. The moment you accept that life isn't meant to be balanced, you stop breaking yourself trying to balance it. That is where power begins. Life isn't fair, but it's always honest. It shows you who you are when things fall apart. That's why the Stoic doesn't ask for fairness. He asks for clarity. He doesn't demand comfort. He demands truth. Because only through truth can you find purpose. And only through purpose can you rise above the chaos. Music deepens, slow and rhythmic, like a heartbeat gaining strength. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." What destroys people isn't the event. It's their interpretation of it. It's the story they tell themselves about why it happened. The unfair world doesn't ruin you. Your reaction to it does. The Stoic doesn't waste his energy rewriting the past or predicting the future. He focuses on the only domain that is his mind. He knows that the world is unpredictable, but his principles don't have to be. So while others drown in emotion, he stays anchored in discipline. While others shout at injustice, he prepares for it. While others seek control over everything, he seeks control over himself. That's what separates peace from panic. Music shifts, light percussion, the tone of momentum building quietly. Most people live as slaves to emotion. Anger, jealousy, fear, pride. They say they want peace, but they feed chaos. They say they want freedom, but they're ruled by reaction. One insult, and they shatter. One delay, and they despair. One betrayal, and they forget their values. That's not strength. That's surrender. The Stoic refuses that. He knows that a calm mind isn't given, it's trained. It's the result of thousands of tiny battles fought inside the self. The war between reaction and reason, impulse and integrity. That's what mental sovereignty truly means. Not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it. Music deepens. A faint sound of rain turning into rhythm, like the world itself nodding. Epictetus, once bound by chains, was freer than most men who called themselves masters. Why? Because his mind was his own. They could take his body, but not his peace. That's the essence of Stoic power. No one can take your freedom unless you hand it over. The unfair world wants you reactive, distracted, emotionally entangled. But the Stoic withdraws that permission. He practices pause. He practices awareness. He refuses to let temporary feelings create permanent consequences. That pause, that small moment between stimulus and response, is where the Stoic lives. That's his empire. That's his kingdom. Music rises, distant horns and strings blending into a soft hum of determination. Most people don't even know they can pause. They think feeling means obeying. Anger means attack. Fear means flee. Sadness means surrender. But the Stoic knows. Emotions are messages, not masters. You're supposed to listen to them, not live through them. Anger shows you where boundaries are crossed. Fear shows you where courage is needed. Sadness shows you what still matters. But after the message is heard, you must let the emotion go. Otherwise, it will rule you. And no man ruled by emotion can ever live with purpose. Purpose demands clarity. It demands focus. It demands stillness in motion. That's why the Stoic trains himself to remain unmoved. No matter what unfolds, he doesn't pretend to be emotionless. He feels everything. But he decides which feelings deserve his action. Music softens. One note echoing, serene yet strong. When life hits him hard, he doesn't collapse, he observes. When people betray him, he doesn't revenge, he releases. When fate denies him what he wanted, he whispers, "Then it was never mine." Because the Stoic has learned the most liberating truth of all. You can't lose what was never under your control. That's freedom. That's purpose. Music builds again, a calm crescendo of strings, quiet power rising. The world will always be unfair. People will lie, plans will fail. Effort won't always equal reward. But that's the point. The unfairness of life is what makes virtue meaningful. What's courage without fear? What's integrity without temptation? What's patience without delay? The Stoic understands that fairness is irrelevant. The test is the same for everyone. Will you do what's right even when it costs you? That's the question. That's the battlefield of purpose. Music shifts, slow, heavy bass, steady heartbeat, under every word. Marcus Aurelius ruled during plague and war. He could have lived in luxury, blaming fate for his pain. Instead, he chose discipline. He chose virtue. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." That's Stoicism distilled to its core. Less talk, more being. The world will never be just, but you can still act justly. The world will never be fully honest, but you can still speak truth. The world will never be entirely peaceful, but you can still carry calm within you. That's how you live with purpose in an unfair world, by living by principle, not popularity. Music steadies. The wind returns, softer, almost hopeful. Purpose doesn't need permission. It doesn't wait for applause. It doesn't bend to comfort. It's built in silence, refined in struggle, proven in restraint. The Stoic doesn't announce his strength. He demonstrates it. He doesn't need the world to acknowledge his worth. He knows that every act of discipline is its own reward. He knows that virtue practiced in silence is louder than any speech. And that's what the unfair world cannot understand. That true power is internal, invisible, invincible. Music fades into a long, quiet note, the sound of breath, the echo of awareness. The unfair world is not against you. It is awakening you. Every challenge, every heartbreak, every injustice is a question. Will you react, or will you rise? Will you complain, or will you create? Will you surrender to the storm, or will you become its calm? That is where purpose is born. Not in fairness, but in your response to its absence. You don't control the world. You never did. But you were given something more powerful, the ability to control how you walk through it. That's what the Stoics knew better than anyone. They didn't seek fairness from life because they understood that expecting fairness is expecting nature to bend for you. The world doesn't bend, it tests. It shapes. It burns away weakness until only truth remains. Epictetus said, "Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens." The Stoic knows one thing, most never will. That unfairness is the training ground of greatness. Ease teaches you nothing. Struggle reveals everything. The world that breaks others builds the Stoic, because he doesn't ask for a lighter burden. He asks for stronger shoulders. He doesn't avoid difficulty. He trains for it. And when life inevitably strikes, he doesn't flinch. He was expecting it. He nods to the storm and whispers, "I've been preparing for this." That is the secret of the Stoic mind. Preparation every day. He rehearses hardship. Not to invite pain, but to remove fear. He knows that when you prepare for loss, you appreciate what you have. When you train in discomfort, you grow immune to shock. When you practice letting go, you stop being ruled by attachment. And when you stop fearing what can be taken, you finally become free. The music shifts, the tone brightens like sunlight breaking through clouds. That is what the Stoics called freedom of the soul. Not freedom from pain or chaos, but freedom from slavery to reaction. You can walk through an unjust world without becoming unjust yourself. You can be met with cruelty without becoming cruel. You can experience loss and still live with love. That is sovereignty. That is purpose. And that is how you live. you become that rare thing that is unshakable. The world can shout and you remain silent. The world can mock and you can remain still. The world can take everything and you can remain standing because that which is inside of you cannot be stolen. The music builds gradually, a cinematic crescendo of strings and percussion, powerful, alive. Marcus Aurelius faced plagues that wiped out half his empire. Seneca was ordered to die by his own student. Epictetus was born a slave, yet all three died free because their minds were never owned. In that, their lives were proof that peace doesn't come from circumstance. It comes from command, and that is the choice you face now. The world is going to be harsh. It is not going to give you a chance, and it is not going to play fair. But that is not a curse. That is an opportunity. A test designed for you to prove what kind of person you are when comfort is gone and chaos surrounds you. You can either complain about the fire or become the steel that survives it. Music softens. Now just the quiet echo of piano keys and distant wind. The Stoic doesn't ask for miracles. He becomes one through discipline, through acceptance, through reason. He chooses to live with purpose, not because the world makes it easy, but because it makes it necessary. Every day, every moment, every breath, an opportunity to stand taller, to act nobler, to love deeper, to suffer wiser. And that is what it means to live with purpose in an unfair world, to move through injustice without losing your integrity, to face loss without losing gratitude, to endure suffering without losing faith. The music starts to fade softer, slower, like a long exhale after battle. For the Stoic knows one truth that no storm can erase. You are not what happens to you. You are what you choose to become because of it. So live your philosophy, walk your words, act with purpose, speak with grace, meet chaos with calm. And when life tries to break you, smile, for it has no idea how well you've been trained. The music fades to complete silence, held, calm, steady. Then one last line, spoken quietly. You were never meant to be treated fairly. You were meant to be tested, so you could rise. And now you know